Horizon Gents, welcome to UX, and this is the worm tier list. Yeah, the worm tier list. This is gonna be good. Not really. I'm gonna be creeped out a lot. I don't know why I get creeped out by the worms. I guess it's the detail, how small they are and how detailed they have. I don't know. It's some things like even like I can't really explain it. If you become scientifically literate at some level, you start to think about these things like, why the fuck am I getting creeped out? Like you can rationalize it and realize like, okay, wait a minute, there's no reason to get creeped out, but still it's irrational. That's the point. Yeah, this is going to be really interesting for a reason. Like worms are the things that people don't think about. But there was a stat like ants. There are so many ants on the planet that they have more mass than all the humans. Shit like this really, when you think about it, like holy shit, how is that the case? Worms are the things that people don't think about. Worms have insane amount of mass, like just how many worms there are, right? So things like that is like how much they have, like, you know, control over ecosystem, how important they are. People don't think about these things. So this is gonna be awesome. This is my channel, TierZoo, yeah. So let's watch this one. Oh, there you go.
The humble worm may be one of the most overlooked characters in the entire game. Though they may seem powerless and pathetic, in reality the worm faction has access to some of the rarest, most extraordinary special abilities in the game, and can be a nightmare to play against. But which worm builds are dominating the meta, and which are just bait?
Which are the one who's gonna fall into worm category? Obviously ants are not going to be the worm category, I think. So it's just going to be a lot of different type of worms that we just saw, right? Yeah, you know, like what type of worms, like usually like when food goes bad, there's worms there. When humans go bad, there's worms there. Shit like that.
Find out in the worm tier list. But before we dive into the rankings, what even is a worm? Even though they're the most numerous creatures in the game, technically there's no such thing as a single all-encompassing worm faction. Worm builds are actually part of several different, distantly related factions.
Makes sense.
But there are many similarities they share. All worms have long, tube-shaped character models with minimal or non-existent appendages, enabling them to weave in and out of tight spaces easily. Simple as it may be, this has proven to be one of the most reliable body plans in the history of the game, as worms have been in the game since pretty much patch 1.0. As far as base stats go, worms are not particularly stacked. Now, credit where it's due, because of their excellent regenerative perks and uniquely advanced burrowing abilities, they do score pretty high in both vitality and stealth. And there are exceptions that score high in other stats as well. But in general, they have below average base stats in almost every skill. With simple brains, no weapons, no armor, and no legs, the average worm is pretty lacking in their intelligence, power, defense, and mobility stats. Yeah. The exceptions are where it gets interesting though, so without further ado, let's dig into the tier list. First in F tier, the Ice Worm. This build takes the burrowing capabilities of the worm in an unconventional direction, and opts to dig through glaciers rather than solid earth. This is a pretty unique gimmick as it grants them completely uncontested access to glacial algae as a food source. But unfortunately, it seems like unlocking the ability to burrow through ice must have cost all their evolution points, because the Ice Worm has some pretty glaring flaws in its strategy. First, the Ice Worm's stealth stat is abysmal. Its jet black appearance offers zero camouflage against the ice.
I'm not gonna lie, I thought this, would have never imagined this is even a thing. In ice? Wouldn't water be an issue when ice melts? Like, obviously, probably it's not gonna be in the places where ice melts. It's gonna be at the places where there is ice, you know, like 12 months a year, right? I don't know, like in places where there's ice in winter, like when it melts, like wouldn't water be an issue? This is insane. What is like one of those things which is not a friend to smaller creatures? Like, I don't know, like this, obviously ants, worms like this, right? Because of just how surface tension works, how physics work. So water is usually not your friend. Like whenever I see bugs, like, you know, like functioning fine around water, like, you know, walk on water, that is overpowered shit. So this one's like, yeah, I don't know, like they probably are like better in water or something.
Icy white surroundings, making them extremely easy for birds to spot from above and pick off. A few extra points into snow camouflage would go a long way here. And the second flaw, Ice worms ironically have almost zero freezing resistance or heat resistance. They die immediately if temperatures drop below freezing, and melt if temperatures rise to even a few degrees above freezing. Luckily,
Nice.
due to a quirk of the game's physics engine, the temperature of glacial ice is fairly stable at their exact Goldilocks zone. But as
Glacial ice. Why not hate that? Obviously, they're glacial ice.
we've seen lately, relying on glaciers as a stable habitat is quite the gamble. It wouldn't take too much to make this build completely broken, but for now, it's the lowest ranked worm on this list. Also in F tier, we have the earthworm. Yes, it's true, the archetypal worm everyone knows and loves is a low tier. Earthworms have terrible stats. It has no offensive moves, no armor, and isn't quick enough to rely on speed to escape attacks. What's worse, even the one special ability earthworms are believed to have is a bit overrated. Earthworms, like most worms, can regenerate from damage and potentially even survive grievous wounds, if they manage to get away. But that's a big if. Most builds that spec into high passive health regen also tend to spec into the autotomy perk as well. This perk allows the user's appendages to break off if grabbed, allowing them to escape a grappling attack. This is a costly ability and one that I normally don't speak very highly of, but situationally it can be extremely clutch. Earthworms do not have this perk, and so when attacked, they often cannot do anything except tank the damage and try to burrow away. If that doesn't work, they're completely out of options.
You don't speak highly of regenerating limb. Yeah, that shit is overpowered. But yeah, this is why I like TierZoo. Even if something looks overpowered, how does that actually function in the like server they are at? Does that really help them? Like that's how TierZoo look at things, right? TierZoo basically puts like pet animals like pet dogs and pet cats is like absolute top tier because they're pets of humans type of shit. Are they more overpowered than lions? Of course not, but they're better off because they're pets of humans.
In D tier, we have the Leech. As the literal namesake for the term used to describe deliberately being carried by the rest of your team, I actually think leeches are done a bit dirty. Yes, many leech players do fit the description, attacking a player in a higher weight class and just coasting off the free XP. But there are plenty of leech players who play an honest, active hunting strategy and have to fight to survive, same as any other predatory build. Like most other aquatic builds, they thrive off of their strong matchup against low tiers like frogs, and spawn camp them mercilessly. Leeches share the same garbage base stats as most other worms though, and with lackluster defenses and mobility, they still get one-shot by fish, birds, and snakes all the time. Frankly, the parasite strategy might actually be the less viable of the two, as leeches are not well protected at all when attached to a host, and can easily get picked off by perceptive players. In C tier, we have the horsehair worm. This nematode takes the burrowing proficiency of the worm faction and uses it for an unorthodox purpose, burrowing into flesh. Horsehair worm players opt for the parasitoid game plan, infecting their hosts when they drink from contaminated water.
Infected.
It then uses its burrowing ability to pierce the digestive tract and hide out in the insect's circulatory system, leeching XP from it as it continues its playthrough relatively unimpeded. But once the worm reaches its max level, it activates its special ability Mind Control to change the insect's quest objective marker to the
There you
nearest
go.
body of water.
Why would you think it's just simple shit like invading a host body and like leeching off of it? It's too simple for it. Mind control. Ooh, we got into sci-fi shit now. Of course, it's gonna do that. Why would this not be the Last of Us level shit? Not really, but you get the point. Of course, it's gonna alter your thought. There are probably worms and shit that kinda does that to human, right? I mean, there is like a what is it, like virus or is it parasite from cats that makes you think cats are more cuter than they actually are type of way, so you like cats more. I don't know, man. I don't like this. No, this is why I don't like worms and all this small shit because of this. It's out of our control. It's so small you can't see it. It's so small you can't control it. It gets in your body, you have no control unless you go to doctor. I don't know, like radiation therapy or some shit. I don't fucking know. This is why I don't like this shit. Anything big, like you know where it is, you can control it. Small things that you can get into. What is that? What is a worm in Amazon jungle or something? It gets through your private parts and gets inside of you. I don't like none of this shit. There's a whole saying about centipedes, like they get inside your ear and eat your brain out. Obviously, that's a myth. I know that. But as a kid, I didn't know that. And shit like that, it just stays with you.
Once the insect player self-destructs, the worm burrows out of its body and continues with the rest of its playthrough. This strategy is incredibly effective and requires very little technical skill, as once you successfully infect a host, you can farm XP entirely AFK. Mind Control is one of the most powerful abilities in the game, and it's shocking the devs gave it to a random worm build. Still, as with any parasitoid playstyle, the main downside is that your survival is tied to that of your host, so if you pick a scrub, you might get one-shot when they accidentally wander too close to a spider's den. And this isn't just a hypothetical. In fact, in some servers, the fish player base is literally reliant on janitoring the self-destructing players. Still, at least by being an internal parasite, they don't run the risk of being picked off like the leech does.
Fireworm.
In B tier, we have the Fireworm, a marine build with excellent defensive stats. Fireworms have toxic spines.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I was about to say fire. What is a fire? It's not going to emit fire, so it's just like central nervous system damage, right? Some things just makes you think you're under fire, like, oh, my skin is burning. No, it's not really, right? Your body's thinking that because your like central nervous system is like flaring up. So it has that kind of toxin that makes you think everything's burning up,
which inflict serious damage on any player dumb enough to attack them. This effect is powerful enough that even large tank builds cannot just eat the damage, and will learn quickly not to mess with them. Unfortunately for Fireworm mains, because their spikes are small and fragile, they cannot pierce thick chitin or keratin armor. This means any player with a thick exoskeleton can completely negate the Fireworm's defense, and crush them like they would any other worm. Some fish mains have also specced into the beak attribute in order to be able to do the same thing. Parrotfish and pufferfish are a huge problem for builds that rely on defensive abilities, as their powerful beaks can crush armor and don't take damage from poison spikes. So, Fireworms are untouchable to a lot of players, but there's enough counterplay prevalent in the meta right now that I can't give them a high tier rank. Also in B tier, we have the Tube Worm. Of all the lazy AFK XP farming builds in the game, there isn't a single one that goes to as extreme of lengths to do so as the Tube Worm. The Tube Worm has crazy high toxic damage resistance, not because it needs to tank venom damage, not because it preys upon builds that use poison for defense. No, the Tube Worm needs toxic damage resistance because its strategy is to set up shop next to deep-sea hydrothermal vents and basically eat the sulfur jetting out from them. It absorbs hydrogen.
So they're ultimate opportunists is what they are. Yeah, they caught some strays from TierZoo, just there, lazy. Basically enter certain political commentary there you go.
Sulfide using its plume, and because of a special team-up ability they have with bacteria, they're actually able to use that as an XP source, meaning they don't even need to really eat at all. They don't need to find food, they just constantly absorb the noxious sulfur spewing out of these vents. Because the sulfide turns water around these vents toxic, the Tube Worm doesn't have to worry about attacks from predators. They do, however, have to worry about the vents shutting down. Hydrothermal vents do not last forever, and when they go dark, or erupt into lava flows, it's GG for entire colonies of Tube Worms. An incredibly effective XP farming technique, but, like a lot of these types of strats, it works until it doesn't. In A tier, we have the Velvet Worm.
Just like us humans, Earth lasts until it lasts, until one day Earth will explode. I guess another asteroid, sun will blow up, there you go, it will last until it will last. Time is relative, isn't it?
This build has even worse defensive stats than the other worms, as it doesn't have the same slime coating that the others do. However, it makes up for it by converting that slime ability into one of the most unique abilities in the game, a projectile attack. The Velvet Worm can fire a glue-like slime from its papillae. This slime attack deals no damage, it's not toxic, and doesn't hit with near enough force to be threatening on its own. However, the slime is sticky and hardens quickly, debuffing the target's speed stat and potentially even completely immobilizing.
This is literally Home Alone, throwing mustard at someone's face, like, what the fuck are you doing? That doesn't do nothing to me. And then he's gonna trip on it. Okay.
This slime is extremely strong once hardened, similar to Spider Silk in terms of what it's capable of immobilizing. Even builds with vastly higher power stats are not safe from being essentially frozen by the Velvet Worm's attacks. Now, while this is no doubt a powerful ability, it has plenty of limitations. It is woefully inaccurate and will struggle to hit smaller or evasive targets consistently. It is also relatively short-ranged, only being able to hit targets a few body lengths away. And because it doesn't deal any direct damage, even if the Velvet Worm manages to pin down a build like the Centipede or Scorpion, it'll still be taking on considerable counterattack risk when it tries to approach. And last in A tier, we have the Bobbit Worm. This build is easily one of the most terrifying things not just in the Worm faction, but in the entire game. The Bobbit Worm is a mid-sized benthic worm build which can burrow up to 10 feet deep into the ocean floor. However, unlike most burrowing worm builds, the Bobbit Worm is not a scavenger. It's not burrowing to look for food scraps or
Yeah, this is straight out of Dune at this point. The level of size, the level of claw shit. Yeah, imagine these things were bigger, much bigger. 1,000 feet in length and big ass size that can hunt humans. Yeah, that's what we need.
to escape predators. No, the Bobbit Worm is an ambush build. It lies in wait, and as soon as another player wanders close enough to its burrow, it strikes, using what may genuinely be the most wicked pair of mandibles in the entire game. These powerful jaws inflict devastating damage, while simultaneously hooking into their target so that it can be dragged down below the ocean floor, never to be seen again. Now, despite their ferocity, I don't want to overhype the Bobbit Worm. Though they are menacing, skilled players can play around their threat range pretty easily. Their low perception stats make them pretty inaccurate when lunging towards their targets. Their attacks are deceptively slow, and as long as you position yourself even slightly above the seabed, they should be reactable and easily dodged. Skilled fish players have even been known to drive Bobbit Worm players out of their territory by teaming up and mobbing their burrows. This requires a successful perception check with a pretty high DC, but if your party is competent enough, you really shouldn't have to worry about Bobbit Worms that much. Despite being easily the most terrifying build on this list, the Bobbit Worm's poor frame data and predictable game plan keeps it out of the higher tiers.
Yeah, so implied that you as a fish is intelligent enough to like remember things and actually work together, which obviously some fish can do. That's how like all these servers work, right? Like the worms need to survive, so it will find food. But that's scary shit what we just witnessed, especially for the worm, right? All the worms we've seen, like, oh, it can do this, it can do that, it can throw this kind of weird silk inaccurately. This thing literally hunts, goes below the ground just like that spider does, right? And just jump at 10 feet below. That's insane, man. That's a long ass worm.
And in S tier, we have the Hammerhead Flatworm.
S tier.
Flatworms are the solo hunters of the worm faction, and the Hammerhead Flatworm is one of the best at it. They're faster than other worms, which isn't saying a lot, but still, it's relevant. They possess a devastatingly powerful neurotoxic slime, the same toxin found in pufferfish and blue-ringed octopus, which they employ both offensively and defensively.
How is Ant
But
taking
their most recognizable feature, their wide, flat head, was a bit of a gamble in terms of how they spent their evolution points. By speccing into the Hammerhead attribute, these flatworms sacrificed their ability to dig efficiently. But in doing so, they greatly boosted their perception stat. Similar to the Hammerhead Shark, the flatworm's Hammerhead is loaded with chemoburst.
Literally any RPG game you play with swords, Skyrim, let's just say Skyrim or Oblivion. Oh, you don't have any stealth. Boy, I have much higher defense and double hand sword damage. I don't need stealth. That's what this shit is. You won't be able to dig. Why would I dig? I'll dig your grave. That's what I will do. That's what this shit is.
Receptors, enabling the worm to track down prey by following its scent. In addition to their toxic defense, flatworms are the best regenerators in the game, able to heal all the way back to full health, even when cut into tiny pieces. They can really only be permanently defeated by non-physical damage, such as dehydration, salt, acid, that sort of thing. Because it's borderline unkillable through conventional combat, the Hammerhead Flatworm...
You're telling me it will be caught up in multiple species and that those species are a thing now. Ugh. This is alien. This shit is this is why I hate worms. This video just like solidified what I already knew.
Ugh. Is the only worm build to achieve the rank of S tier. The Hammerhead Flatworm's excellent tracking abilities ensure that even without eyes, it knows exactly where it's going. And even though I do have eyes,
like,
to be
nope.
totally honest, sometimes I still get lost while exploring the internet. Or at least I used to, until I started using today's sponsor, Opera.
Yeah, well, go to original video page link from there, support this channel. That was a good segue. There you go. The worm is like, really? Really? Okay. That's how you're gonna segue it? Okay. Yeah, the S tier is kind of like overpowered compared. Like, yeah, even A tier was kind of like good with the, like trap thing, like digging inside and like grabbing shit. But that's very specific. This thing is just a hunter, like I don't need stealth ability. I'll just fuck you up type of way. Makes sense. Yeah, but worms can be like really scary. I'm sure there are other type of worms which are like very specific and very creepy, scary in some their own way, which obviously TierZoo didn't cover here. too many worms out there. How many he's gonna cover here? He just covered the main families, I guess. But yeah. Rebel, if you like what I said, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.